free to jot down Dana's phone number at the bottom of the screen, or if you're not listening or not watching the screen, that number is 515-221-2688, and if anything should happen during this hour, she is standing by and is able to help in any way. So first of all, if you are using the computer to watch the PowerPoint presentation, and there is going to be a video, I want to give you a couple of little web tips that can help you with this platform. First of all, in the middle top section of your screen, you should see some buttons where you can zoom and manage your content view. The content view is the large area taking up probably most of the screen. And that's where we'll be showing the PowerPoints as well as the video. And then off to the right-hand side are some panels. And you can select the icons that you want to show or populate, including the participants, chat box. I believe Dana sent off a good morning to you. Some other features that we won't be using, but it's another feature for future polling and questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to use the chat box, and you can send the questions to all participants, and then Dana will be giving me those questions or comments as we go through this hour. So a little bit about Inspiring Solutions. Last year, you may know that we celebrated our 25th anniversary, which I keep telling people, it's hard to believe when you're only 29. But anyway, this pyramid illustrates our cornerstones to a cultural success. And we believe that it starts with a clear vision through strategic planning, through leadership and team development, making sure that all of management is aware of what their responsibilities and accountabilities are. And then we also have a unique ability of connecting with frontline, helping make good hiring selections, making sure that you have a solid onboarding process. Attitude is at the core of virtually everything that we do, and then we also provide sales and customer service training. So for more information, you can go out to our website, inspiringsolutions.com, or if you'd like, we'd be happy to send you one of our new talent development catalogs. We produced that this year for the first time, and it describes all of our training programs, our inspiring keynotes, the learning assessment tools that we use and you can use as well in developing your talent. And then we've got a variety of different turnkey training resources that if you are responsible for providing the training, you can use. It's got complete with facilitation resources and participant material. So our goal for this hour includes giving you our monthly motivation using a webinar or e-learning, and then to expose you to one of our inspiring programs and or products. The agenda set out for this hour is to profile today's multi-generational workplace. We're going to help you to identify and even rank from your own perspective the top 10 job factors affecting engagement. And then I'm going to share with you some strategies to help you motivate and retain your top producers. The handouts that were included in the instruction email include a handout entitled Engaging Today's Workplace, Practical Strategies for Motivating Employees. There is a program description. It's a 4-part process that we have used for both management and employee development. And then the third, as always, we announce our upcoming webinar schedule, and we've got our 2018 topics selected at least for the first 6 months of the year. So again, if you do not have those, feel free to reach out to Dana by calling 515-221-2688, and she'll be happy to send those to you. After the webinar, we always seek feedback, so you'll be asked to fill out a complete brief survey offering comments and suggestions for improving not only the webinar, but for topics of interest for you and your company. So for starters, we appreciate you continuing to sign up and encourage others to sign up for our webinars. Our registration continues to grow. You can go out and register in advance. and then you'll be given a reminder a week before as well as a couple of days before with the contents and the instructions. But we always repeat each webinar again at 10:30, so if anyone would like to join us at the later hour, it's repeated. And continue to pass along invitations to coworkers, your friends, and your clients. So let me begin this month's topic with a couple of interesting statements. Would you agree that finding and keeping good employees is one of your #1 employment issues? I know here in Des Moines, our unemployment rate is so low, and so finding good quality employees that are not currently employed is a real challenge. Negativity in the workplace deteriorates morale and reduces the bottom line. In my work in the area of attitudes, negativity continues to haunt and challenge and frustrate today's workplace. Would you agree that the average cost to replace an employee is at least 3 times their compensation? Those costs include not only the cost to hire, which could be anything from if you use a recruiter, it could also include the cost of advertising, not to include the cost of the downtime without that person in the team, their loss of productivity, and then once hired, what it takes to bring them up to a fully effective and efficient employee. And then would you agree that 70% of employees typically will leave an organization without sharing the real reason? Even if you conduct exit interviews, they typically don't tell you the real reasons that they are frustrated or choose to leave. So let me begin by sharing with you a model about today's workforce. And if you are using the handout, this is one of the first worksheets that we're going to profile. In each of those quadrants, you'll see 4 different types of employees. The first I want to talk about are those that are motivated and ineffective. Why does that happen? Well, a lot of times these are the new employees. They're excited about the new opportunity to learn a new job, meet new people, new bosses, new team members. So what they typically will do is they come with great excitement and eagerness to make a difference, but because they're confused or they maybe not have all the insights or resources to be effective, they come across as maybe lacking confidence. They may not be as highly productive. So how you can help them if you are the manager is to give them direction, give them clear expectations, provide a solid, concrete onboarding and orientation process. And I use those words distinctly because I believe that orientation is defined as what a company will do, for instance, with HR. Human resources are involved in going through the paperwork. They might share the employee handbook, kind of giving a general, broad understanding of the organization from a general perspective. And then I believe there should be a very specific and consistent onboarding process. Now, we have helped organizations create a 90-day experience. What that means is what's to be done in the first day, what's to be done in the first week, what's to be done within the first month, and very intentional activities, education, exposure. Oftentimes we will encourage new employees to use a buddy system so that they have somebody, not necessarily just their supervisor or their manager, but somebody who might be a high-performing employee who has good qualities to go to if, for instance, they have questions, as well as, for instance, job shadow. Now, moving on to the next quadrant of employee, there are those that are motivated and effective. These are the folks that have had the opportunity to have a good, solid orientation and onboarding, and they might be able to identify what's expected of the job. To keep these people in a motivated and effective role, you'll need to keep them challenged in the job. You'll not want to overwhelm them with job responsibilities, because sometimes we tend to give these people, our high performers, yet more work. So you'll want to balance out their workload and giving them opportunities to grow and stay productive in the job without burning them out. I'm going to ask if any one of you comment for Dana to unmute herself and add any comments so that it will be quicker for people to get their responses as well as questions answered. And then the third type of today's workplace are unmotivated but still effective. Now, why does this happen? These people have been in a job for some time, and for some reason they feel as though they're no longer being heard. Thus, the reason that they are effective. What they tend to do is filtrate their comments or create an underlying current throughout the organization with things like, well, this is what we should do, or this is what we do, giving people an idea of how things are done around here, oftentimes working against management. And therefore, they are unmotivated to do the job the way they're supposed to. So again, if you are the manager, how you can help these folks is have a voice. I will encourage you, if the manager has any of these employees, to seek them out, feed them with good information, maybe give them some credit for being in the know, or credit them for their years of experience or their service to the organization, but align them with you in giving them good information or asking them for feedback so they can better align with you and not work against you. And then the fourth quadrant of today's workforce are both unmotivated and ineffective, yet they still get a paycheck. I think typically these employees are tolerated. Sometimes they are even enabled. As I work with leaders, I encourage them to be courageous, to have crucial conversations with these people, because not only will they continue, but they will tend to demotivate other employees who are not only doing their job, but feeling as though they have to pick up the pace and cover for these folks. What they tend to do is very little. Oftentimes these people will work harder at getting out of the job than if they were to just understand and do their job. As the manager of these folks, what you need to do, as I mentioned, have crucial conversations with them. I would encourage you, if you have been tolerating this type of performance, take the heat yourself. Maybe you even inherited this type of employee. And so I always say, draw a line in the sand and take some blame. Say, you know what, I'm going to take some responsibility. I should have been more aware of and confronting this kind of behavior earlier. However, this is unacceptable, and I want to make sure that you are aware that this behavior, if continues, would merit us going down our progressive discipline process, which I would like for you to consider this as a first verbal warning. And again, know your progressive discipline policy. If you need to go down the path of continuing to document it in writing, you might even have a form that you need to fill out, which might include an action plan that says, here's what we expect moving forward. If it does not improve within a certain length of time, maybe within the next 30 days, it will move on to more of a written. And if then it doesn't improve, it can move on to and including termination. So this represents today's workforce. Now, as a leader or as a manager, I'd like for you to think about it from another perspective. I found this really insightful, power-packed video. So I'm hoping that you are not just calling in, but you can watch this video, because it doesn't have any spoken words. It contains a lot of very interesting statistics about today's workforce. So who is sinking your boat? Pretty amazing statistics. Besides the fact that we should hire our 5-year-olds to come and provide some creativity in the workplace, what were some of the significant statistics that caught your attention? I will encourage you to reflect and type those into the chat box, and then Dana can chime in at any time as we go through this process. Some of the things that I thought were interesting was that there was a difference between employee satisfaction and employee engagement. The way that I think about that is you could be satisfied in your job, it's paying your bills, but you're not really engaged or as interested in making a real impact as those that are truly engaged. The other insight that I thought was interesting was about the fact that employees are pretty keen on how effective their managers are. And I think that people oftentimes don't quit jobs, they quit relationships that they have with their manager. And I think so many times managers need to take some responsibility for how engaged or disengaged your employees are. So those are just a few of my takeaways. And again, feel free to, if you'd like, type into the chat box for Dana to pass along. Otherwise, what I'd like to do is give you some additional insights to how it is that these cultures come to be. I have worked with many different industries in many different cultures. And when I say cultures, I'm not talking about the ethnic diversity of an organization. I'm talking about how it is that management has created a place of work. And here are 3 different types of cultures of power. And I want to use the word power because that is the way in which managers influence others. Starting in the lower left-hand corner is a culture of control. So if a manager is one of complete need to be in charge, a very autocratic, do as I say type of leadership, it creates a culture of dependence. So in other words, employees tend to shut down, don't make decisions, they wait for basically the boss to make the decision. On the other hand, in the lower right-hand corner is a culture of abandonment. Here's where a manager or a supervisor tends to hire an employee and then feels as though their work is done. So they tend to let the employees pretty much call the shots, allowing them to work independently without much direction. The one that we want to focus in on or desire is that of empowerment, where there is a degree of control and abandonment, or I should say freedom, allowing more of an interdependency or collaboration. So what does each culture contain? The first culture of control is when leadership and management tend to create an atmosphere of mistrust and suspicion. There also tends to be closely monitored tasks. It's all about production. It's not about the people or relationships. And as I mentioned, it's far more autocratic, more dictative decisions. And as a result, this creates a culture of dependence, conformity, and mediocrity. They pretty much check their brain at the door. The second culture is that of abandonment. Like I said, this tends to turn employees loose on the job and allows them to pretty much do whatever they want without any kind of accountability. There's little to no direction. You could imagine that there's probably little to no consequence or consistency. And because of this culture, there's a lot of chaos. There's very little teamwork because of the inconsistency and because it creates this culture of independence. The culture that we are striving our clients to create is that of empowerment, where a manager and leadership recognizes and utilizes its talents because it realizes people have a unique base of knowledge. They come to the job and they want to develop their skills, and they have certain desires to make a difference. As a result, in this culture creates not only interdependence, but a collaborative culture where you all enjoy and celebrate mutual success. The definition that I like to use for empowerment is when there is a style of leadership that recognizes, promotes, and utilizes the knowledge, skills, desires, and opportunities to help their individuals succeed. I chose the clip art there for a couple reasons. One is, do you see the clock? The clock is smiling. A clock smiles twice a day at 10 minutes after 10 and 10 minutes to 2. And I always think that that's a great time to take a break. Also allowing people to even dress with their own individual styles, might even allow their dogs to come to work with them. And you might even see in the background a basketball, because maybe you have a basketball court, allowing people to exercise and play some team sports during break. Now, as a leader, on the next page in your worksheet, feel free, if you are a leader, to use this as somewhat of an assessment. An empowering leader seeks out and uses the talents of others. They nurture people's growth and development, and they tend to focus on the effectiveness with people and efficiency of things, which means in many cases technology. It could mean equipment. It could mean tools that you use in the job, whether you're in healthcare, banking, manufacturing. The next section on that handout talks about the skills that you need to develop. So as we work in managing and developing leaders, we help them learn how to seek to understand, which takes a good degree of listening, listening with empathic skills. Valuing diversity, not just from an ethnic perspective, but a difference of generation, which we're going to be talking about here in a minute. Leaders that can innovate as well as bring out the innovative and change of others. They promote collaboration, not only within their department or their team, but between departments. I do a lot of work, as many of you know, in healthcare, and that is such a unique set of skills from one department to the next, and no one patient experience can happen without collaboration. And they understand and embrace the importance of interdependence, emphasizing passion or purpose. The last checklist on that handout is for you to kind of go through and assess your own empowering behaviors. And from a skill set perspective, learn how to embrace and grow these skills as an effective, empowering leader. So if we put all of this together, empowerment means that you understand employees' expectations as well as your customers' expectations. I think a truly collaborative culture takes a look at what are the needs of your customers, what are the needs of your employees, and then I'm also developing a new process where employees need to realize that they're under a contract, and so they need to recognize and honor the needs or expectations of the manager or the leaders. And then if you take that and you add engagement, you have a culture of empowerment. So engagement in a culture doesn't necessarily mean that you are engaging others. You are creating conditions from which employees release their own potential. This goes back to the adage about motivating others. You know, who motivates you? You choose to be motivated based on the environment, based on the relationship that you have with other people. It could be with your boss, it could be with your coworkers, it could be with your customers, whether you call them clients or patients or residents. And engagement enables people to use their talents to the fullest potential, because I believe that if you tap into your employees' talents, not only are you going to get their very best, you are going to be operating at the highest level of efficiency and effectiveness. And then the last component I want you to think about engagement is to have a desire to or a purpose to make a difference. That's one of the things that you'll learn from millennials. They need to know that they have a purpose in the workplace and that they have been hired for a very specific purpose. The key to employee motivation then is to understand as well as communicate your expectations and also strive to mutually meet expectations. What I'd like to do is give you some exposure to an assessment tool that we use called Work Expectations. Now, it is a special order, so you will not find it out on our website. It is a special tool that we have access to with our relationship with Wiley. So if you would like more information, feel free to call Dana. You can email us, ask for more information, or even have a sample sent to you. But it's not a test, and I always sound like the emergency broadcast system. It's not something that you can pass or fail. There's no right or wrong answers. It's not a personality profile like DISC or Everything DISC. It's not going to tell you about your behavioral style. What it will tell you is what you expect or need in the job. It will define what you not only need, but how satisfied you currently are in 10 different areas, and can serve as an employee engagement survey. We have used this for clients for a company-wide employee engagement survey, and we've also used it for a department-specific tool. So let's say that maybe you've got a team that's not very engaged, and without your employer embracing a company-wide employee engagement or satisfaction survey, you can use this tool. And what's nice about it is after employees have completed it, we can generate department or team-specific reports that will give you a composite of their expectations and their level of satisfaction. So let me introduce to you those 10 work expectations. On the next page in your handout, you will see the 10 work expectations listed there as job factors, from structure, diversity, recognition, autonomy, environment, expression, teamwork, stability, balance, and career growth. And what I'd like to do is at least give you an exposure to the assessment by, having you rate, or I should say rank, in order of 1 to 10, the order of importance to you currently in the job. And on the left-hand column, I'd like for you to rank those in order of importance to you, with 1 being next to the one that's the most important, then 2 being the one that's the next most important, on down to 10. Now, it does not factor in your degree of satisfaction, like the online assessment would do. But I'd like you at least to get an idea of a one-dimensional aspect of using this to identify level of importance. All right, and what I'd like to do is have you type in the chat box your top 3 highest ranked items. So what did you rank as 1, 2, and 3? And if you can type those into the chat box, Dana will read off if there tends to be any trends. And if you're not familiar with the instructions or how to use the chat box, it's on the panel on the right-hand side. Determine to send it to all participants if you'd like.
Yep. We got expression, environment, career growth.
Thanks, Dana. Feel free if there's others coming on in.
Balance, teamwork, diversity. Teamwork, structure, balance. Teamwork, structure, balance.
Hmm. And as I'm looking at
teamwork.
Thank you. As I look at the registration, we've got a variety of both management, leadership positions, as well as frontline. Okay, thank you, Dana, and feel free if you guys want to continue to type those in. But the insight that I want to gather is what matters most to you may or may not be what matters most to your employees. So let's begin to think about it from an employee perspective. You'll see on the far right-hand column an opportunity for you to rank those in order of importance to your employees. Now I want you to put yourself in your employees' perspective. And again, if you want to think about it from those that report to you, if you want to think about it from your organizational perspective, and I'd like you to at least jot down what you think they might say are the top 3. And if you would, type these in the chat box for Dana to share.
Recognition, environment, and teamwork. For employees, career growth, recognition, environment, career growth, recognition, stability. And we've got recognition, expression, and career growth. Looks like recognition is one of the top 3 priorities for everyone.
And you're right. Yeah, and you're right, Dana.
And it varies. I like Craig said that varies by generation. That's very true.
Yes, which is a great setup to where we're headed next. Before I leave this exercise, this is actually a good exercise if you wanted to have your employees fill out, or you can actually have them fill out the online assessment. But great for teeing this up because that's what we want to do next. On the next several pages, in fact, I could have given you a lot more information. Dana did some research on the 4 generations in the workplace, and I tried to think about what would be most relevant as it relates to managing these 4 generations in today's workplace. Never before has there been such a diverse range of interests, values, and needs in the workplace. So feel free to take some time and read through those several pages. But what I want to do is at least give you some highlights from that information that I believe today's workplace needs to consider making radical changes in the way in which they recruit, onboard, develop, and lead for a culture that contains both respect and collaboration. The chart that you see has the 4 different generations, traditionalists, baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials. So let's take a look at each. The first column indicates the traditionalists. And these are those folks that were born from 1900 to 1945. Their current age this year are 63 to 86. They represent a 5% part of the workplace. And you can see some of their influences, and what they value is family. I put this image there of some black and white photos because family is truly most important to them. And when you think about what they've gone through and where they're at in their life, that would make some sense. What they tend to focus in on is quality, not quantity, but it's quality of life, quality of relationships. They want hierarchy. So in the workplace, that means they want to know who is of authority. Who is the boss? Who do I report to? What is the line of or the chain of command? They tend to be motivated by security. I think of my father who only lived in 5 different homes in his entire lifetime. Security from a relationship standpoint was very important to him. The workplace needs to be a time or a place in which they feel recognized and respected. So if you do have any traditionalists in your workplace, make sure that you honor them, respect them, and provide them with discreet communication. I think that one of the things that they will provide is an ongoing loyalty that is unbeatable. The baby boomers, You'll see the baby boomers were those that were born in 1946 to 1964. Their current age is 44 to 62. That is me. 80 million people. Again, this is by far the largest, but although the millennials are quickly catching up in volume, they represent the largest part of today's workplace, 45%. So baby boomers in the workplace, and I will fit into that, we value success. We work hard for our achievement. We focus, unfortunately, on working long hours. We tend to define ourselves by our work ethic, which can be the detriment to perhaps personal relationships. I thought it was interesting that this group has the highest divorce rate and second marriages in history. They want equality. They want to make sure that everybody's playing by the rules and contributing their fair share. Motivated by money, they oftentimes equate that is a reward for their long hours, or at least to be merited. They want work to be a place where they can shine or showcase their talent, and they want it to be a place where they can truly make a difference. If any of you are managing or working with baby boomers, make it personal. They want to feel as though they are recognized for their contributions and don't want to be considered just a number in the workplace. Generation X are those that were born from 1965 to 1980. Their current age is 28 to 43. 51 million, which these, again, close to the baby boomers, represent the second largest with 40% of the workplace population. These folks value time. That's the illustration that I want you to remember. Time, maybe because of their parents working so long hours, they weren't at home, and so they really believe in balancing work and family. They focus on productivity. They want to get in, they want to get the job done, and then they want to go home and enjoy their time at home. They want informality. They appreciate flexible work schedules. So if you have anyone who does have children at home, they're going to appreciate the opportunity to leave work early to maybe pick up their children or go to their kids' sporting or school events. They are motivated, like I mentioned, by time off. They, again, value that time away from work. It's not who they are. It doesn't define them like, for instance, the baby boomers. They want work to be a place where they can enjoy dynamic leadership, being a part of a team, as well as flexibility to do what they believe is most important. So if you are managing any Generation X or Ys, be sure to be clear with your communication. They want to know, they don't want to waste time. They want you to be articulate and specific with what you need them to do. And then the last are the millennials. There's kind of a separate group from 1977 to 94, which I thought was interesting, along with those born from 81 to 2000. Their current age is anywhere from 8 to 27. 75 million. So this is the second largest group of people in our world, following second to the baby boomers. They do represent a growing population because obviously they're going to be coming into the workplace, but they do represent 10% of today's workplace. And here's what you need to know about millennials. They value individuality. They don't want to follow the rules. They will comply, but they want to make sure that they have a voice in expressing what matters most to them. They focus on making a contribution. They want their talents to be recognized. You know, it's amazing how I'm hearing of these people graduating from college and starting their own business. You know, you hear of the Facebook founders and all of those people that are coming right out of college and becoming very successful entrepreneurs. They want and appreciate collaboration. They want to be individual, and they want to collaborate with other successful individuals within their organization, within their team, or they want to socially network. They're motivated by intelligence. I think of the Big Bang Theory when I read that. I thought, wow, that's so reflective of that brain tank. They tend to think of work as a place where they can feel challenged, and they expect to be respected even though they might not have the years of experience behind them to reflect that. So if you are managing a millennial or two, all you need to do is just send them an email or text message with direction, and they will be just fine. So there's a lot more information that I could share with you, but I would like you to jot down in the text box, or the chat box that is, what generation are you, and which one are you most challenged by? So I'm going to have you think about, from your own perspective, which generation are you, and which are you most challenged by? And then I'll have Dana type in or read out loud what you have to offer. And as you're typing in, oh, I saw
Craig says a boomer challenged by Gen X.
Thanks, Craig. In fact, what I'm just realizing that when he typed that, it is flashing up on my screen. So of course, this is technology as a baby boomer that I'm not quite as savvy as I should be, but as you guys type in, it is popping up on my screen.
Gen X challenged by millennials who want it all and want it now. Karen says baby boomer, and then challenged by millennials. Tracy's a Gen X and challenged by millennials. Linda's the Gen X challenged by millennials. Those darn millennials.
I know it, and they're only gonna grow in population. So that's the good news, bad news. And here's what I'd like you to take away from this discussion is, yes, we are of different generations, and yes, we have come from different walks of life. We have been brought up under different circumstances, and one is not better than the other. It's merely different. We were talking this week about the 911s of our lives. You know, some people remember where they were when Kennedy was shot. I do not. Many of us remember where we were and how we learned of 9/11 on September 11th. Some may remember when either John F. Kennedy's plane went down or when Princess Diana was in a crash. Now the more recent one that probably today's millennials remember was the mass shooting. Oh, there Craig said, yeah, John Lennon's death, exactly. Or now more recently, the mass shooting of Las Vegas. And I think each of those significant events in our world's history further define who we are and what matters most to us. I know most recently I was not physically a part of the Las Vegas shooting, but I was actually out there. And as I left the airplane, I could actually see it from the Mandalay Bay, and I could see that window, that one of the two windows that had been shot out. And what I take away from that, I know that there's been such loss. I want to try to find the silver lining in that. And just as one person can make such a devastating impact to others, I want to believe that one person can make a positive difference. And you hear the stories about the heroes that stepped up and helped people, complete strangers, to getting to the hospital that day. So I want to believe that even in our darkest hour with the floods, the fires, that there is great power of making a positive difference. So there's a lot more that we could cover. And again, we gave you that chart that you can learn more about them. But what does that mean to engagement? What that means is you've got to be innovative and receptive to a variety of different strategies to motivate and retain a diverse workplace. So the last couple pages in the workbook or the handout contain the 10 different job factors. And what we usually do is we'll get people to share what matters most to you and in what ways could your employer or your boss or your company meet your expectations. So I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. So for instance, if structure was of importance, these employees want to know what to do, how to do it, and available resources. So what I believe is important is to make sure that your job descriptions are current, up to date, and are even adapted each year given your performance management system. So I know in our organization we have a general job description, but given the nature of our strategic plan, what are our priorities, what the skills of our employees are or priorities, they can be very flexible. So current job descriptions would be a must-have in the workplace. The second is diversity. If an employee believes diversity is important, they want support for differences in backgrounds and opinions. And I guess what I'm going to say based on our discussion is be sensitive to your multi-generational culture. Again, not labeling anyone as being too old or too young. I guess I'm going to believe that each needs and has a place in the workplace. Your job within the culture is to learn how to respect, accept, and maximize those multiple generational contributions. Third, since again you mentioned that this is probably one of the top 3 most important to any generation, these employees want to be noticed, appreciated, and rewarded. And one of the things that I think it's kind of like the 5 love languages, if you're familiar with that book, that talks about the way in a personal relationship we want to feel loved. I think we can also apply to that degree how people want to feel loved or recognized at work. To some people, it's just a good old-fashioned thank you. You know, thanks for your help, Dana. I appreciate your willingness to help me understand this technology. Thank you for sharing that idea. I'm going to consider that. You know, whatever it might be, it doesn't have to be a significant monetary, although monetary sometimes is nice and appreciated, but I will just say that gratitude changes people's attitudes. The fourth job factor influencing people's engagement is autonomy. Autonomy means that they want freedom to express their ideas and utilize their skills and abilities. One of the things that we do when we work with organizations for maybe a 2-3 year time frame is to allow employees to be a part of a process improvement team or a problem-solving team because they want to have a voice. They want to have a chance to identify and resolve problems. And if managers can realize that they work closest to the problems, if you get them involved in identifying and resolving those problems, you're going to maximize not only their performance, but you're going to get some meaningful results and efficiencies. Now, environment is interesting. When you identified or when you ranked environment, it can mean one of 2 things. It could mean that you want to physically be comfortable at work. A large part of that is safety. I can't tell you how many employers that we're working with now have a workplace violence policy in place, making sure that there's not an active shooter in the workplace. The other is more of a socially comfortable environment, doing things outside of work. A client of mine that I just came back from Sioux Falls recently had an employee gathering where they went to an escape room. And I thought, what a neat team activity. The employees were expected to put together a team, and then each team competed against the clock, against the escape room. And I've never done that experience, but they were telling me about how exciting that was to get providers and nurses and janitors and dishwashers together in a very dynamic structure, all contributing different parts, and really a very collaborative experience. Lots of fun. I think they're going to do it on a regular basis. The 6th job factor on the next page, or last page, It talks about wanting to reflect your own identity and make use of your creativity. You know, and I think when we talk about 5-year-olds having much more creativity, I think the power question we need to ask, like kids, is why? Why are we doing it this way? And I think if you can honor people's questions why, or ask people why, you will begin to open your minds or thoughts to doing things new ways, more creative ways. Teamwork is another popular request for frontline employees to feel engaged, and they just want people to feel like they're a part of a team. You know, team can mean a number of different things. It could mean team in a unit. It could be a project team. But all in all, it's fulfilling our sense of belonging. Everyone wants to feel ultimately belonging to something or a purpose. Managing stability. You know, you think about that's kind of an oxymoron. When you think about today's workplace having more changes more rapidly than ever before, how is it that you can give or provide a degree of stability? And I think probably the best way I would provide that is open and honest communication. You know, making sure that people are aware of what is the vision, what are some of the plans, and to the best of your knowledge, being willing to be vulnerable. You know, not being afraid to say, you know what, I don't know, we don't have all of the plans in place, but communication is key in helping people feel stable or secure in a constantly changing environment. The 9th is balance. Now, again, if you're a baby boomer, you might not have that, and I know I'm guilty of that. My career probably is such that it kind of interweaves my personal and professional time. But I do believe it's important to intentionally find balance. And I heard somebody say something this week I thought was really interesting. Putting an intentional comma between work and home. Or in some cases, maybe it needs to be a period, because you definitely need to leave work at work and you need to leave home at home. But I do know that there is some degree of crossover between both environments. And then the last job factor that's important, and again, I think it's interesting when you talked about age, depending on where you are age-wise, career growth may or may not be important to you. For those baby boomers or traditionalists, it may or may not be any big deal anymore because they've been there, done that. But for maybe an aspiring millennial or a Gen X, they're going to want to know that they have opportunities for growth in their jobs or with their employer. So I know that that was a broad brush of strategies, but I hope you walked away with some degree of strategies for meeting today's diverse workplace. If you have any questions, I'm always willing to honor them. Send them to Dana or myself. Our emails are on the communication. Feel free to call, have a conversation. If you are interested in bringing this process, I think of it not so much training as a process for learning how to engage today's workplace, there is a handout that Dana sent to you. It talks about a 4-part process. The first part looking at how do managers understand the diverse expectations in the workplace. Then we take it to the front line, or the employees, the associates fill it out so that they can identify, and again, you can assess what matters most to them. And then after both managers and employees have gone through that process, we do kind of a merging of the findings at part 3, where then you take the group reports and you understand what are the levels of expectations and satisfaction, and then what can you do in part 4 to hear out and honor what matters most to your employees. So if you want more information about that, feel free to call. I'm happy to talk more about that in helping you to evolve your culture to be one of more interdependence than that of control and independence. So in closing, I want to share with you who I think is was extremely creative, and that was Walt Disney. And that philosophy that he has of do what you do so well that people can't resist telling others about you has carried on as his legacy through the magic of Disney. Upcoming webinars, we encourage you to join. If you haven't registered, please do so. Next month, we're going to talk about staying positive in a negative world, my signature program these days. Our last one for this for 2017 in December will be on inspirational leadership. We have just launched our first half of 2018 topics. So take and put those dates on your calendar, share them with others, go out to our website, and you can register in advance, and we'll be following up with you for reminders and information. And like I said, you'll be given, when you close out of this webinar, a brief survey to offer your comments and suggestions for future topics. I leave you with this cute image that I don't know about you, but I sure am ready for the weekend. Thank you for joining us. Have an awesome weekend, and we look forward to having you join us in future free monthly webinars. Bye for now.